Happy Saturday. Last day of June. It is hot as hell here in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's about 104 today. It's going to be 110 tomorrow, 112 on Sunday, and some ungodly temperature on 4th of July. So, in addition to people setting themselves on fire, blowing things up, and scaring their dogs and veterans, it's going to be baking out there on top of all that. So, have a fun, blow your fingers off holiday. But welcome to the Sci-Fi Center Live, our weekly Star Trek show. We are going to be covering in spoiler discussion, as you see the little spoiler streams down there, the latest episode tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Big, huge difference from the courtroom drama that we had just 7 days ago. I absolutely love this episode. We did our watch party a couple of days ago. If you get a chance, hopefully we'll drop the link in the chat. If you get a chance, go ahead and watch that, and then join us next Wednesday, Thursday night as we go through it again. Like I said, so far this season has been great. This season has been great. Let me go ahead and bring in the other two people that actually watched it with me the other night. Dade and then that dude Vince. What's going on, man?
Hey guys.
Not much.
So basically continuing our discussion, this episode included time, or was about time travel. It starts out with our favorite Noonien Singh, not Khan, walking through the hallway, meeting some stranger who appears out of nowhere with a bullet wound, eventually dies of that bullet wound, tells Lana that she has to get to the bridge, hands her a device. Everything changes around her. She enters in the bridge and she sees a familiar face as far as the Enterprise bridge goes, but not the familiar face that she should be seeing. Not Captain Pike, but she sees Captain Kirk, who is wondering who the hell she is and why, and his exact words is she doing, or what the hell is she doing on his bridge. From that point on, she tries to explain herself. Mystery person she met in the hallway. This is not her Enterprise. He agrees. They figure out that something has happened after he pretty much dismisses that she may be out of her mind. And as they wrestle over the device that Captain Kirk wants his science officers to take a look at, but she is unwilling to give up, they end up transferring themselves back to 21st century Toronto, Canada, and we go from there. What did you guys think from this episode?
You can go first, Zade, if you want.
I generally like time travel episodes, so this episode was good. I also see it as a course correction for Star Trek, for the timeline anyway for Star Trek, because it's something that since the episode came out, Akiva Goldsman's come out and said that this basically is a course correction for where the timeline is right now because everything keeps getting pushed forward, and that's why they put what they put in this episode, talking about how uh, you know Khan was supposed to happen in '92, and that's why the Romulan lady was there on Earth for 30 years. It's just the timeline keeps getting pressed. Like there's certain like what they call nexus events that are supposed to happen,
Yeah, that are always going to happen.
and this one keeps getting pushed forward.
Which is hilarious because we're going to need an entire episode based on the way they see time because it just extends over to the movies too. Because people look at like when J.J. Abrams restarted this series in 2008, 2009, how there were certain things that were going to happen no matter what in a certain incident, even though, well, how can this happen if that timeline got altered? It doesn't matter. They are always going to meet Khan. Kirk is always going to encounter Khan. When it happens, how it happens may be different. Uniforms may be different. It's going to happen. And that's basically what they were trying to say in the season finale in season one, is that no matter what Pike tries to do on his own to change his fate, it either is supposed to happen or something worse is going to happen. So we see Pike surviving, but he screwed up one of those events that is so important that he makes things worse. And he doesn't really necessarily prevent what he's trying to prevent from happening. He just moves it on the line. It's kind of like the same premise of Terminator. The Terminator was never supposed to be found, the pieces in 1984 that led to Skynet and Cyberdyne being designed. That was always supposed to be the 3-star general, her father, that made that happen. But because other things happened, it moved when it happened, but it didn't stop it from happening. And that's what the Terminator meant. Judgment Day wasn't a preventable event. When it happens is irrelevant. It's going to happen, and it's going to lead to the ultimate future. I always love when somebody tries to explain time and they actually do it in a way that makes sense. And I thought this episode made sense time-wise, and that was a really good couple of seconds that Romulan put in there.
Yeah, I really love the episode overall. I'm kind of with Aid where time travel episodes are honestly some of my favorite, and I think there's a little bit of a tie-in to Future's End from Voyager 2 because that was never supposed to happen, and even Captain Braxton apparently got stuck there for 30 years, and I think some of those events could have pushed everything forward too because they were there 96, I think. So stuff was already getting messed up.
They also, like I said, we were saying during the actual broadcast where we were watching, they also did something pretty cool, in my opinion, is they reinserted the Romulans into all this. The Temporal Cold War was what the Romulans were fighting. They were the main protagonist. They were the main belligerents in the Temporal Cold War. And that goes back to the show that I think Old Trek Fan and UPN combined together to shit on, which was Enterprise. We never really got to see what that show was going to do with the Temporal Cold War because everybody buckled under the weight of Old Trek Fan, and we ended up getting the furry Xindi and the aquatic Xindi and all the Nazi and all just pure nonsense. And then it wrapped up with one of the worst Star Trek endings ever. So this show, when I saw that, when I saw the Romulan, that bird of prey there, I'm like, wow, they're really going to do this. And then the Temporal Cold War, like I said, that all really, the crux of that is in Enterprise. And this show, Strange New World, this season does one thing and one thing alone, and it fixes Enterprise. I'm going to be so happy. I might cry.
Yeah, I was going to add, I like canon as much as the next guy, but a lot of the old Trek fans just they want everything to fit together like Lego pieces. And sometimes it's like, just let the storytellers tell the story and not get so hemmed up on small little details, Yeah.
If you can accept that there's time travel, if you're okay with there being time travel in Star Trek, and that's been okay for 57 years, then you have to be okay with things being altered and changed. You have to allow the modern storyteller to tell the story. Otherwise, why make new Trek? Are you just basically going to retread what I've been watching since my dad was a kid, or do I get something out of this? You know what I mean? So,
yep.
Okay, fourth, it's okay to be wrong. We've already established this. I don't know why you would disagree on, but no, that's what it is. Well, they're basically telling linear time, and then explaining that if anything happens within that time, there are certain things that there's so many strands that lead to that event that it's always going to happen. It's like trying to stop something by catching one of them when there's 1,000 of them heading your way. There's so many reasons why this thing is going to happen that you would never be able to stop them all. It would be impossible for you to stop every instance that causes Khan. And if you did, it would like I said, the butterfly effect is what would Khan. People always say, hey, you know what? When we go back, if we had, that they were explaining on the Star Trek, the after show. Obviously, Khan would be the one that you went back, Khan, but Hitler is the one we always think of. If we had a time machine, would we go back and kill Hitler? Yes, Hitler was horrible. Yes, Hitler led to millions on top of millions of people dying. But there's certain things that happened during World War II that were necessary, that needed to happen for our future to be where we're at now. I mean, could you imagine where we would be nuclear power-wise and a whole bunch, defense-wise and just world, where would the world be had we not fought that war? Even on its worst day, your advancements and just things happen, Certain people die, certain people live. If the wrong person dies, who knows if another Hitler is in there somewhere. It's just so many things, and it's fascinating to talk about. Like I said, we could do an entire episode, a marathon on time travel, both the good and the bad. We could start with the great, which is Terminator, and the bullshit, which is Back to the Future, and we can come somewhere in the middle and be like, wow, this is the kind of influence that makes Star Trek what it is. How you doing, Ryan? How you doing?
There's
Hello.
something else with like Strange New Worlds that's really been something that I've loved, and that's rewatchability. Like I could go watch that episode again now and not get bored of it. For me, like that was always something I loved about the older treks is like being able to revisit them. And that's something I didn't really get with Discovery a whole lot. No offense to that show.
And see, Discovery had a different purpose, and that's what I noticed about every Trek has a different purpose. And now that you looked at them in hindsight, like Deep Space Nine wasn't about exploration; it was about war. Um, Star Trek Voyager wasn't about necessarily exploration, even though they did it by default because of where they were at. It was about character development in a situation that they was all forced on them. So that show had its purpose. Star Trek, Next Generation, and the original series, those are both exploration shows. And then this one is sort of exploration, but we've already done all the exploration. These characters, we already know the extent of their exploration. This is a situational show. What are these people going to do when faced with certain situations? We're already doing the exploring thing. We've already covered that. But the situation that she's in and the character development that comes from that, I loved her character development in this episode. And it's also same thing with Captain Pike, the situation that he is in, what he knows is going to happen to him, and how that develops his character. This show is more about it's a character development show with Star Trek as a backdrop, and I think that's what's cool about it. Discovery was different because once again, its purpose kind of got muddled because the showrunners were different. I mean, the people who opened up Discovery weren't the same people that wrapped up, like, that are going to wrap up the series. It's totally, you could see the tonal shift in there.
It
Discovery, go ahead.
it seems to me that this show is about destiny more than anything else.
Yeah,
Like you've got Pike facing his destiny, the beep chair in his future. You've got La'an dealing with the destiny of being a Khan Noonien Singh's descendant.
go ahead. I can still hear you. Did we lose them or did they lose me?
I can still hear you, William.
Okay, I think we just lost Dave. Yeah, Destiny. That's probably the key word. It's probably a better description of it. It's just a great show. I cared
Some
more about that character, Leon, more than I did prior to this episode. Especially at the end where she's basically wanting to reach out to Kirk and she knows that can never happen. And her crying, and you feel the weight of her character, not just her being a descendant of Khan, but just the way she is. She has all these walls built up, and for an instant, even though she knew it was going to end, because she knew that the timeline had to be set straight, and that Kirk, whether he was, spoiler alert, was killed or not, he could not exist in her world. And it was the first time, and she, since they've had her as a character, probably in her life, where she didn't feel as alone as she's been the entire time. Because if you look at her character, she's a very solitary character. She has Ona as her friend, but even that's a standoffish type of friendship, And that's
yeah.
her only friend on that ship.
What I was trying to say a little bit ago is, and you've got Kirk, the different versions of Kirk trying to face up to his destiny as well, of who he's going to become, later on and everything else. I honestly, like I said, this show's about destiny more than anything else.
Yeah, I was worried when I was watching the show. I'm like, when I saw the previews, I'm like, are they going to make him look stupid? Then I realized, okay, once you realize the story that they were telling, him never being the Earth, that was like, okay, that's a thing that I did not see in the previews and the little things that they show you, the trailers that they showed you for this episode. You see this guy walking around a revolving door and some of the things he has to figure out. I'm like, oh, they're going to make Kirk look like a buffoon. But in the context of what they were doing, you're like, okay, what if you had never been, you're human, but you'd never been to Earth? All this is new to you. Canada would look like Manhattan to you because you've never been there. And then by the time that you see the Manhattan that you probably seen on a screen somewhere, you're talking 100 some odd years in the future. So I thought that he did a good job of becoming his own Kirk. I don't. I see him copying certain mannerisms and everything that all Kirks have to do, but I don't see him copying William Shatner's Kirk. I don't see him copying Chris Pine's Kirk. He's a legitimate Kirk for me, but in his own way, and I thought that was kind of cool. That's a really hard role to play.
Did
What
you
did you guys
watch
think about
the
that?
Did you watch the Ready Room after?
Yes, I did.
Because he talked about that a lot. You know how he was portraying Kirk, and he says, we might get there eventually with the way Kirk was, the way Shatner was as Kirk, but right now he's a different person. He hasn't gotten to that point yet.
Yeah, this is still Lieutenant Kirk. Well, he's Captain Kirk there, but the captain that he is when she meets him has not been the captain that we know because he hadn't experienced the things that we know that makes him the Captain Kirk that we're all, no matter who plays him. There are certain events like not having Spock at his side. I mean, Spock is obviously a poor guy's about to get blasted by the Romulans. So there's certain things that that I had to wrap my head around. I'm like, this is not the Kirk we know, but he's still doing a great job. So I know he's going to be throughout the season, and I'm interested to see how they integrate him because, like I said, I say this every episode. At some point, Pike, we're getting to the point where Pike has to move on, and Kirk does have to take over. So there's going to be some people that we've gotten connected to that are on their way out. The Doctor, obviously number one. We never know what becomes number one, but we know she's not there when the original series begins its regular run. Uhura is there, Spock is there, M'Bing is gone once the actual show gets running. Obviously, that engineer, I mean, she could be anywhere, which is perfect. I loved her character. That was hilarious, her just stealing shit. and like stealing things from hundreds of years ago. I mean, you go back in time to visit the Palia, and she's stealing there too. And then she's stealing all this stuff and bringing it aboard the ship. So I thought her character was cool. I thought I loved the way she was kind of like I heard it somewhere else in another show. She's kind of like a guiding character that you can kind of revisit because she's been around so long.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed her.
Well, you also have you notice that the changing of that Nexus event, the killing of Khan as a child, changed First Contact. Like we don't, because Spock shows up on the ship at the very first there, and Vulcan is not part of the Federation. There is no Federation. It's just,
Exactly.
what you don't realize is when these Nexus events, when you stop a Nexus event, it snowballs into other Nexus events and changes everything.
Which is why you have the time police, making sure we don't screw everything up. But I forgot. I think it was Trek Culture I was watching. And he was hilarious. He's like, she left that gun on the bed with Khan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Sean's ups and downs. There was a few I thought he was a
this
little
one
too
was
hard.
probably his best.
Yeah, it was really good. There was a couple of downs that I thought he was a little too hard on, but
Well, he always has some that are like really that like he's a bam up. Sometimes he gives two downs. I'm like, oh, come on, man. But he gives two ups too. It's like But I thought the Kirk relationship. The womanizer is still there. The womanizer is still there, and she's hot. So that was characteristic.
yeah, you notice when he was like, "Why should I change this?" But I just want to. How about I just go back to my time? And as soon as she mentioned Sam, he like completely changed his outlook on that.
Clearly Sam is dead in this current timeline that he was in. Sam's not alive. Because remember, he said Sam's alive.
Yep.
He's like, wow. I thought that was cool. I thought I like one of the other things he pointed out. They just do the clothing in the trash. I'm like, okay, well that might change time. If somebody gets those suits and the comm badges and all that are just in the middle of a Toronto garbage can,
Or leaving Kirk's dead body there in the Institute. I thought about that after my second viewing.
Well, okay, so is that timeline still existing?
Yeah, I don't know. That's the whole craziness about time travel.
Because he resulted from the attack that they stopped, so his body's not there anymore, right?
You're probably right about that.
Well, it probably won't be. It probably wouldn't be because the timeline corrected itself. But if you really think about it, though, if time travel goes like other ways I've heard time travel go, you know, like you don't really change time, you just create a branching timeline. Consider what might have happened leaving Captain Kirk's body back there in the hallway of
Well,
the
and somebody
Institute.
pointed it out. I've watched so many Trek shows after this that the body in Picard was the one that they found in that institute, but it would have been too old unless the time people brought it back. But see, here's the thing about that. I know that if you alter something in time, you can create an alternate timeline. But they went back to the one that they altered because she came back to the Enterprise that's supposed to be there and the crew that's supposed to be there. So if that's true, then his body everything should disappear.
including
She's still the Romulan now is somewhere lost in that line of time because she's got pushed back again, depending on when she comes back. She's always there. She was there first, right, Sarah? She was there. She's always there throughout the time. So she's going to be there, but at a different point in time. But Kirk won't be because he wouldn't have been there, but for the attack that was successful enough to cause that. He wouldn't have been.
If you think about it that way, Vince just said, you know, what about the gun? I mean, if you change the timeline back, the gun wouldn't have been left with Khan.
Well, no, the gun's still there because she was there. We didn't eliminate the reason for her being there. We eliminated the reason for Kirk being there. She's always there.
That does make sense.
You should find her body. You should find everything from her. Actually, you know what? And that's why she dissipated, because she knew that. Because he's in that timeline. Kirk wasn't supposed to be. Kirk was only in that timeline because of them. So once you've eliminated that reason, Kirk's body's no longer there. Nothing that happened in this episode actually happened. Really. That would be causality, because only thing that should remain is that Sarah girl is eventually going to reach that time point. So you're either going to have a paradox where somebody's going to have to stop them, or those time police are going to have to come back and stop her without doing anything with time. But she's got the watch from that era, so that's a fuck up right there. And then she left a loaded gun with a kid on the bed. So technically Kirk's body should. It's kind of like when Dyson, unless there's another reason why these things happen, but just like Terminator, when Terminator 2 happened, if that were the cause of the Terminators happening, then the only person that should be there is Sarah Connor. Everybody else should disappear, because there's no reason to send John Connor back. And if there's no reason to send John Connor back or Kyle Reese back, then there's no John Connor. So, but when it didn't, that means there was another event. But according to the time police, or whatever, the time agents, that was it. They fixed it. So Sarah's still there waiting to kill somebody. She'll reach that point. But they won't know. Remember, they kept changing the mission. The mission was originally to blow up Toronto. Then it kept changing. So this probably changed that mission. The only constant is that she's going to be there to try to fulfill killing somebody. She's going to be trying to blow up something or kill somebody. But Kirk won't be there. Kirk was an aberration.
Yeah, I see what you're saying with it. And also, after watching it with me, my girlfriend was like, how about we get a whole spinoff of the Temporal Police? I'm like, yeah, it'd be kind of cool. Maybe they could do that.
At least a full episode. At least a full episode with just them. Looking at all of Trek. Daniels, I thought for sure when we were watching it tonight, I thought for sure it was going to be Daniel sitting in that seat, and then some unknown lady. But
that was probably my only disappointment. Was I was hoping it was him.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It opened up a can of worms that just had me thinking. And then like I said, I usually don't watch the after show. Like I usually watch it the next day, or usually watch it like on Friday. I actually went right as soon as we were done. I went right to the shit going, because I had to see what the next episode would be. But yeah, this show just has the potential to really fix a lot of things. And their explanation of what was going on in time was a very sound explanation. Now that should shut up a lot of people. Well, Colin wasn't around. It doesn't matter. Now you know. They gave you the Star Trek explanation, not the Back to the Future or Avengers Endgame explanation. They gave you one that you could take to a quantum position and be like, is this somewhat legit? And they would be like, yeah. 50% bullshit, but mostly, yeah, maybe. But with, I'm not getting in a DeLorean going 88 miles or 188 miles per hour, and I'm ending up, with a ripped up letter from the Libyans that are about to kill me. That's not going to happen. I'm not going back in time, screwing up time, taking things from time, and then coming back to the future and not having like the apocalypse with demons everywhere, because that's what should have happened in Endgame. Because those gems were stopping horrible things from happening. And so when they came back to the future, that should have been a result of what happened to them. Thor of 2013 is running around without a hammer for 7 years. Because that Thor jacked his hammer and went back to the future with it. That doesn't happen in Star Trek. And if it does happen, like the device protecting her from the temporal effects, so that's why she knows what she is and where she is, that's what's supposed to happen. But, Star Trek does time travel, as far as TV shows goes, better than anybody. So the movies, no. But the shows do time travel.
Yeah, the movies, they make it a little bit more fun or whatever. But with the shows, they try to, make it, it makes sense.
Well, because the movie about what would happen to a Klingon bird of prey if you tried the Star Trek 4 stunt is probably not going to be as exciting, which the BS reason that what happens when you go around the sun and shoot back in time. I'm like, come on, man. It's a bunch of crispy old Star Trek veterans dying real quick. Remember the whole thing, that the visuals that they showed with the faces coming out of it? I was like, come on, man. I still love that movie. It's still one of my favorite Star Trek movies, but when it comes to time travel, it's like, oh man, But
I will say the upscale in 4K does that scene some justice.
Yeah, and all you got to do is throw it at Dr. Neil deGrasse, and he'll just tear it up. He'll just chew it up and spit it out. Which is why I'm glad we have him. But you know what? He would have a hard problem with this episode because it was sound theory. But like I said, this was just about her. This built her character up, and they've been doing that lately. This season is about, and from the finale of last season, it was about Captain Pike. And then they eliminated him out of one of the episodes where it was about her. And this episode, it was about a lot, so it's like, and then the season before, the Doctor had his episode with his daughter, and Spock. So they're doing something that they really didn't do a lot of in Star Trek, recently, is they're focusing on individual characters per episode, which I think is kind of cool. Because like I said, in Star Trek in general, how many Chekhov episodes did you ever get?
I really miss the ensemble, stories. I really appreciate that with this series.
They're good, but we've had a lot of them. You know what I mean? We've had, like, I got an Uhura episode out of Strange New Worlds. Remember when she was sitting at the captain's mess at, why because she was not going to join Starfleet. She was probably going to leave after her cadet thing was over. Right. And he convinced her. I love that conversation. You wouldn't have had that in previous versions of Star Trek. What I'm cool with that we had the ensemble where Uhura is there, but she's not. I mean, she didn't have her own starring episode. I don't recall.
So I think they're showing that they can have an ensemble without making storyline A, B, and C, like the old shows used to do, and then connect it all together.
Yeah, there's no subplot in this one. Did you notice that? Did you notice these episodes don't have a subplot? It's whatever the story that they're telling, and that's it. Like Next Generation would have something here, and then West would be doing something here, and then the main story. This is just whatever the main story is. That's what they're focusing on. She was the main story, and that's where they drove it home. So it's different. It's different, but I guess when you only got the 12 episodes, you got to.
Well, that's why I don't really mind it. Like, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, I want to go back to where there was 20 or 30 episodes and stuff," and I'm like, I liked it for that time, but now you're really not getting a bunch of filler. It's like, oh, it's character development, but at the end of the day, the character development usually didn't go anywhere. So here, I feel like it really does.
And I like the fact that we're getting 52, 54-minute episodes.
His last one was an hour and one, I think.
Yeah. We're watching it without commercials, by the way. So we're actually legit getting, we're getting all, we go through. It's a straight 53-minute, 54-minute episode, which is good because, like I said, I got so abused with Mandalorian in their 30-minute episodes. And some of the other one. I'm like, I waited all week for 30 minutes, and you left me on a part of the cliffhanger, which is a horrible. They don't leave you with cliffhangers on these episodes either. This episode is complete. Now the story arc, obviously, we're going to see these people come back again, but there's no cliffhanger. You got your contained story. You could watch this episode independently of any episode of Star Trek if you wanted to. The more you watch, obviously, the more you know. But I really, like I said, I love this show. I think it's probably the show that has learned from every version of Star Trek. They've learned from they've taken the strength of every version of Star Trek that's been out there. And you can kind of hear it in the callbacks of the show. There's all kinds of Easter eggs in this show that they call back to. I mean, obviously, and then you see Khan as a little kid with a skull on his counter for some reason. And then you see all the fellow Khans, the people that, that are in his class that he's going to have to rise above. There's just a lot of stuff in there. The Romulan bird of prey, the fact that, the Romulans are involved. I need an episode to take place where all of this was stemming from, because there's a certain point in time where these Romulans are looking back and they're saying, we don't want that. And I think it might be Discovery, because I think it is somebody who is living in the Discovery timeline that is sort of disgusted that, because you look where the Romulan and Vulcan are at that point in time, they've reunified. And if you're a traditionalist, a pure blood Romulan, you probably think this is an abomination, and you want to prevent that. And you realize you have to go how far back you have to go. But they don't realize that every time they try something, they're screwing something up. Poor kid had to wait there. I mean, poor murderer had to wait there 30. Hi, Chappie. Had to wait 30 years. Can you imagine that? Thank you. We enjoy having you here, Retro. Can you imagine having to wait around 30 years?
On a planet that on a planet that you're not used to, and yeah, it would suck.
Not looking like what you're supposed to look like, because we never got to see your pointed ears.
I also think it's a tie-in to Enterprise too. Speaking of the Romulans, because we never got to see who the temporal Cold War, who the guy behind the
the future guy. You heard my theory about all this, right? Like I said,
I agree with you.
I want to see it's all tied together. Worf's parents. Remember that attack? It was in the 3. Worf's parents were accused of conspiring with the Romulans. That led to that attack. In my fictional universe that I wrote, it was the Romulans that they were working with that whole time. That was part of it. The future Romulans. At every juncture, the Romulans are trying to disrupt what will become the union between the Klingons and the Federation and the Federation in general. Whatever is the easiest for them, whatever opportunity they can get first. And that was what Broken Bow was about. When the Suliban were chasing, that Klingon, and they were experimenting with his blood. And that would have explained the Flathead Ridge, because the Enterprise did an absolutely abysmal job when they were forced to tell that story. In my opinion, the Ridgehead Klingons were the superior race that the Romulans created in order to basically rule the Klingon Empire through them. But these were augmented Klingons. That's why when you first see the original series, they were the ones that Kirk and the Federation encountered, because they were the diplomats. They were the smarter ones. Everybody else with the ridged heads were beneath them, and they basically ruled the Klingon Empire through Romulan technology and in Romulan physiology. And that's why when Worf is asked about it, we don't talk about it, because it's a shame. It's a disgrace. They sold out their own people basically for power. And that was just all these things, yesterday's Enterprise, all of that is the rift in time is caused by them, because who benefits from the Klingons and the Federation fighting the way they would have been fighting in the aftermath of yesterday's Enterprise. So all of that to me is one big 2-hour episode where they solve all of this, and they link. You would basically be linking every piece of Star Trek together through one line, because if you're the time guy, it's all happened for you. You're outside of all this, so you know where you have to attack. You know what's going to happen, but he's messing things up. So eventually, I hope this series addresses this. And like I told you guys on the podcast the other night, if I see Archer, I like to control my whole fanboy orgasms and stuff like that, because a grown ass man. sitting in the comic book store wearing a Shazam shirt. But I digress. If I see Archer and they tie that to this, like I said, I'm going to have the fanboy orgasm while we're doing the podcast, while we're watching it. Because that means that somebody finally sat down and paid attention to enough details where they're like, there's no reason for this to be broken. We have a vehicle here to make this work. I think that's what they're doing. Otherwise, why the Romulans there? You could have any other a Star Trek villain in here messing with time. But it's the one that I've always thought that, because like I said, I've always believed that the shadowy future guy is a Romulan. And we never really got to that. Now here we are with Romulan screwing up time, and here we got the time cops.
Yep.
And it can also tie in with what they did, a little detail they did in Picard as well, because they had the NX-01 refit that Picard was playing with as a kid, and that was supposed to be in season 5 of Enterprise.
Yeah, and then you remember the one that was in the museum?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was supposed to be there, and that was supposed to be, one that probably got destroyed during that war, and then the 1701 was probably the one that they got launched under April, and so on and so on. Because what you're supposed to see is the Romulan War, the beginnings of the Romulan War, and that lead into the Federation. And people are like, how do you can't have cloaking Romulan ships? It's not canon. It's not according to the Bible of Roddenberry. I'm like, it's time travel, jackasses. It's time travel. It's not supposed to be there. That's the point. Let the storyteller finish. They couldn't do that. They put on the man-baby diapers. They did their protest, and because UPN was just on very fragile legs at the time, UPN crackled, and we ended up getting just some really awful storylines and very awful.
UPN was a mess from the start, where it wasn't available in
it wasn't available here in Vegas, and then it merged with the WB, and you see how that's going. So
and then we started how bad season 4 of Enterprise was, like with the the 3, was it the 3 arc augments?
Oh, that was horrid. What's going on, Enosh? That was horrid, and we need to stop using the same doctors. I mean, I love Brent Spiner. I love his contributions to Star Trek, as stated. I never ever want to see him again as any version of that family. I'm done. I'm done seeing that version of the family. So,
Are you saying you're against the Sungs?
Yes. They may not have started out that way, but I've grown to be like, good grief. Listen, Brent Spiner, he's going to get plenty of work.
You must have hated that little brief Easter egg they did when he said Noonien Sung instead of Sing.
Yeah.
That's fine. You know why that was fine? Because Brent Spiner didn't pop out of the trunk or in the back seat and say, "Oh, did you guys say my name? I need more work." No.
Well, the thing is it's like Sean Ferrick pointed out. He's there in that timeline. Adam Sung is there in the timeline where they just showed up at.
There's 90 of them. They're everywhere.
And
Sung,
you know,
Adam,
like
Kim Sung, everybody.
The Sungs started the augment program, so we are never going to get away from the Sungs until Brent Spiner drops dead. Okay.
And then AI, he's never gonna die because they probably signed all their rights away for a couple million. Be like, hey, rest in peace, Brent Spiner. We got your AI right here, and guess what? I need Tom Sung. I need Jeffrey. I mean, I'm like, good Lord, how many family? I mean, they all went into biology. And I remember the episode where he got out of what he was doing, and started getting into cybernetics. I'm like, oh, okay, geez, wonder where that's going to lead to. That was fine. I didn't need to see him again after that. I'm like, good grief.
Yeah, I think he
spent more of that character than he did his Data in 7 years. Like, good Lord.
Yeah,
but
it was
I was
hard.
fine with it. There was a cool Easter egg, though. Every Easter egg in this episode I love because they're paying attention. Old Trek fan, they're never going to admit it. Old Trek fan should be like, wow. If you're old Trek fan, and I'm amongst that number. If you're old Trek fan and you accept the fact that there's time travel in Star Trek and that there's consequences to time travel in Star Trek, then you should be okay with everything that's happening in Strange New Worlds. They're really, once you introduce time travel, there's no such thing necessarily as canon. Because you think that the future Romulan, 1,000 years in the future, is giving a shit about canon? No, he doesn't want canon. Canon sucks for him. So in order to have our story, we have to disrupt canon.
Yeah, he's that Romulan's in the future going, "Yep, we got to change this shit."
Yeah.
Yep.
He's like, you know what, TOS, I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me because look, my race is about to get, and I'm pretty sure it's got, that's, how do you bind to the Discovery's fifth season to all this? Because like you see where the Romulans are at, and just imagine just how racist things can be sometimes when you see mixed, when people think that they're on the way to being bred out or being put in a minority or their race is not going to exist anymore, their ethnic group, you see it here in just real time. Could you imagine a proud race like the Romulans and watching this happen and then just probably having an offshoot saying that this is you're interbreeding with these mongrel Vulcans, or vice versa. You could have a Vulcan. It could be a Vulcan instead of a Romulan, working with them saying, you know what, the Vulcans are a proud species. The Romulans are wild animals. We don't need to breed together. Screw you guys. Let's work to keep us apart because we're prouder races, separate, distinct races. So I'm gonna check. Yeah, we're in the same age group. I'm having so much fun with the show, but I really want to see that. Hey, Star Trek: Strange New World showrunners, I know you're watching this show right now. You don't have to admit to anybody that you're slumming it with me. You can come in under an alias. You can watch it. No one needs to know. But if you're watching, give me Scott Bakula. Give me Archer. Fix Enterprise. Hashtag fix Enterprise. Make it so that I can unremember or unlive that atrocious finale. The awful things that show got mutated into because the combination of old Trek fan crapping on the show and then UPN not having a big enough shovel to fend them off. Fix that. I already love the show. But man, it'll be like, Rapture or something. I mean, like I said, if I see Scott Bakula in this as either Captain Archer, Admiral Archer, Porthos, I don't care. If I see him, then I'll know exactly what they're doing. And
Admiral Porthos.
The dog, yeah. He's got like the fifth Porthos or something, because beagles don't live forever. But if you give me Jolene Blaylock again, because she's still hot heading into 60. Bring her back. Bring back Dr. Flock. Bring them all back, and give me de-age who you ever need to do to bridge all these Romulan things. Because if you look, every piece of Star Trek has Romulan meddling with it now.
Did you notice the Denoblian in the very first part of the episode?
Yes. Dr. Fox, there you go. And they've joined Starfleet. So and then out of this, I would create a master villain that escapes all of this as time collapses and everything resets itself at the end of all this. That guy is kind of like Age of Apocalypse, where Sugar Man and some of the Dark Beast, they escaped when the timeline recorrected itself. I would have one of those flat-headed Klingons escape that time and be just working in our modern time to just screw things up. And just he'd be like a master villain that you could use for a while. But yeah, man, that's what I would do. And like I said, I don't know if this is what they're going to do, but I could feel it being, because there's no reason to add these Romulans now, because none of us knew. I don't think they ever revealed who the Shadow Man in Enterprise was, right? He was never revealed, correct?
No.
Nope.
Yeah, nope.
So I'm not a genius. NASA is not looking for me to fill one of their corner offices. I'm not splitting the atom anytime soon, but I know Star Trek, and I paid attention to what I think that they were doing in Enterprise, and now I feel it here. I feel the gravitational pull of something that was so bad being corrected, and just like they did with Next Generation. Even though we got a good ending to Next Generation, we didn't get a good ending to that little Nemesis stuff. But Picard left you leaving the table full from the buffet that was the Next Generation. That's the way I want to feel about Star Trek Enterprise, and I kind of feel it here. And I'm going to scream out loud live when we watch it. If they turn the chair or somebody beams in and it's Scott Bakula, You do the sound I'm gonna make when that happens. Guys need to have your headsets off.
Well, we know there's going to be more time travel because
We
Mark
got the
learned.
Strange New Worlds
Yeah.
episode coming. I mean, the Lower Decks
Your Lower
episode
Decks,
coming.
which I'm looking to be utterly ridiculous. It's gonna be hilarious.
From the still photo.
But hey, tie in Strange New World too.
Okay.
Yeah, you gain a couple pounds eating there. By the way, they close at 9 tonight. That means I still have an hour and 15 minutes to get my loaded fries, which you can only get at Sister Cam's 900 Karen Avenue, Suite.
Yeah,
D,
speaking of
112.
Scott Bakula, I was a little disappointed that he didn't show up in the revised Quantum Leap, so I'm really hoping he was too busy.
Is that show still
filming for
on?
this. Yeah, it got renewed for a second season.
Yeah.
Because I watched an episode of it and I completely dismissed it because I'm like, oh, jeez.
It's not the best. I just kinda,
No, I actually watched it and it was actually pretty good.
My only complaint is like the girlfriend. I didn't really care for like him having a relationship with the person helping him, but that's just me.
What's going on, guys? Hello.
Yeah, I'm here for right. Better get in.
Right there. I was not able to get all of them. Oh, hold on. Comic Book Geek intermission here. I got the 2 and I got the 3. I'm still working on the rest of the series, but that's just the order that they came in.
Got you.
And their cover. So whatever the cover is on there. Yep. Wow, you felt. I didn't know I had those kind of mental powers. So it worked. Let me see if they work now. Hold on. I'm wishing for someone to bring me Starbucks. So if that happens, dude, then I'm in Vegas. I need to be at the casinos. But no, I got those 2. You have the rest of the series is coming though. But for some reason, that's how they came.
Yeah.
All right. What were you got? What were we saying?
Oh, I'm just saying since he didn't show up in the end of that, spoiler alert, I guess. Maybe
Well, he
he
looks
was too
good,
busy
too.
filming for this.
He just wrapped up New Orleans, CSI New Orleans. So, I mean, he's not like he's looking like a decrepit. He's one of them Hollywood guys that are never going to age, and you can de-age him now, but you really don't need to because you could bring him in as Admiral, and he's already supposed to be old, right?
Yeah, and me and him are like we're from the same area, so I always root for whatever he's in.
Yeah, Bakula's great. I can't wait to see how this wraps up. Each episode just opens up another door to where I wasn't thinking about it. And I've been watching Star Trek a long time, but now I was having a common conversation that I just had now out of frustration because of they just basically destroyed Enterprise. So I've been having that conversation and I actually sent this in. Yes, I am that nerd. I sent this in to the people who were running Enterprise at the time, the people who were running Star Trek and doing all this stuff. When we would come to the convention out here, they would be out here, and I would talk to the people. They look like me like I'm crazy, but they're like not that the kind of crazy that where it makes sense crazy. But there was no way to get this done at the time. We didn't have shows. You know what I mean? Star Trek was dead in the water because of the way Enterprise ended. Now, if I go out to the convention this year, I'd be like, I see what you guys are doing. You didn't remember me, but you stole my idea, and I'm okay. I'm okay with it. It's gonna fix something that I thought should have been, a great bridge in Star Trek.
Yeah,
So,
the way that ended was such a shame, and even the actors and like some of the producers don't even acknowledge These Are the Voyages being the last episode.
They need to
No,
Deadpool that episode.
What's funny is even Frakes decries that episode, and he was basically the star of it.
Yeah, he was a star. I mean, and the chef. I mean, the use of the chef, him as a chef. I thought that's sacrilege. I'm like, dude, that's like the only sacred thing about that show that they didn't touch, because you never got to see him, and now he's playing the role. I'm like, come on, man. I mean, I really, yeah, Aaron. I don't know what it is with StreamYards. I'm finding this out that we're getting people are getting the notifications way. The other night, a couple of nights ago, I was a half hour into a 45-minute stream, and I was still getting the notifications on my phone. So I don't know what's going on with StreamYard, and I'm getting emails and text about it because some people are strange. We air late at night on most of the time. Some people are up in that time and they want to watch, but what's ends up happening is that they're getting the notifications so late. So I hope we get that fixed. So, all right. Any final thoughts on this episode?
I was gonna add one thing that I don't usually watch the trailers for the episodes, but I did because of the Ready Room, and
Uh,
I guess we'll see where that goes. I guess we're gonna be
yeah,
jumping right back into action, which is fine with me.
yeah. And we have 10 episodes, so we got 7 episodes. We it feels like we've been through like a year, and it's only been 3 episodes. So
Yep.
Trekyards pointed something out earlier, though. If you look at
I think
the delta symbol on Pike's chest, there's a difference in it. Like he's been promoted to fleet captain already. Was something they were pointing out earlier.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was watching Stewart, Trek Yards, and he was saying he doesn't think we've seen the last of the ramifications from this episode, and I
Oh,
think
no,
he's
not at all.
absolutely right.
Not at all. And the thing is it's gonna keep going.
Oh yeah,
Remember, time travel, changing time is like a wave. Okay, when you change one thing, it spirals into other things. So that's why it keeps pushing certain events forward because now our only problem is going to come is when one Nexus event crashes into another Nexus event. So if they keep pushing Khan forward to like World War III, look what's going. You're getting closer to First Contact there. You know what I'm saying?
right. And I was also gonna add in just real quick for to piggyback on your thought about the uniform. Um, Lawn's also she seems to be suffering from headaches,
Yeah,
which I think is caused by the time travel.
yeah.
well, she may eventually get wiped out. I think she is. I don't know how because I don't have any evidence to it. I think she may not. She's not supposed to be there, and I think that unfortunately, and it's going to be sad. I think that there's going to be one of these things where they reveal to her that once you solve this, you don't exist anymore. She will have wiped her. I think she has to wipe herself out of existence somehow.
I think the headaches can go back to when Seven of Nine went to the relativity. She kept having those headaches because they kept sending her back. So I'm wondering if this isn't the first time that they've sent her back.
Well, they might be using her because of the fact that they can use her, and it won't alter what is the prime storyline or prime timeline because she doesn't exist. She's not supposed to be there. See what I mean? I'm just I have no. I'm just thinking that
It's a good theory.
she's just a tragic character from beginning to end. I think
That
her existence is tragic, and I think her end is going to be tragic, but not death tragic. But she wasn't supposed to be here tragic. You know what I
that
mean?
that might explain why we've never heard of her afterwards, or why even Kirk didn't really know of her all that well.
Yeah, because the Noonien Sin name is probably not supposed to be brought up. What probably ends up happening is that Khan wasn't supposed to have any descendants. They probably, in the prime time, because Khan could pass his augmentations down, they probably found some way to make it to where he was, gotten to before he could have any descendants. And that's one of the things that's messed up in time. That Khan Noonien Sin was not supposed to have any descendants. And part of the time that has to be corrected is the part that would allow her to exist.
Either that, or she just disappears into the time police.
That
That could
too.
also be another thing. They could
That
just
too.
take her in as a temporal agent, and
Yep. So
because
much potential.
Daniels, he wasn't really known outside of the time police. He wasn't really known. It's kind of like the Men in Black. You know what I'm getting at here? Like
Yeah.
once you get accepted into the time police, they erase you from the timeline.
Well, it's kind of like the time variance. It's like the time variance on Loki, to
Uh,
where all those people were taken out and reprogrammed because they couldn't be put back in because they
Yeah,
were variants.
I would
And that's
imagine
exactly what
something.
she is. As a matter of fact, that's exactly what I think she may be as a variant that can exist in order for time to be set right. So, but that's just a theory I'm pulling out of my ass. But you know what? last time I pulled a theory out of my ass, it looks like they're going to make it happen. Damn it! So
Yeah,
all right, guys,
they
we're
probably
gonna
do the
wrap
same
this up.
thing with the
Go ahead.
Section 31 agents as well.
Yeah, we need to see more of them too, because they kind of like disappeared. Where's this movie coming? All right, any final thoughts? I think I what are your final thoughts? Ed? I got yours already, Vince.
Just in the end, it seems to me that like you said, I'm hoping that they use what you said. I hope that they fix Enterprise. You know how I love Enterprise,
Yeah,
and I the whole thing. Like I was talking to my brother the other day. My brother's another Trekkie, and he's he asked me a while back, just like a week or two back. He asked me, well, what's my opinion on the Xindi arc in Enterprise? And I said it was shoehorned in there. I mean, it's not supposed to be there. And you can tell as you're watching Enterprise, when it gets to the Xindi stuff, you're like, okay, this doesn't fit, you know? And it's because there was interference because of what you said, did the old Trek and all that BS and everything. And that's not where that was supposed to go. There were things built up before the Xindi arc that never got a payoff. All of that. And I'm hoping this fixed things,
yeah. And now it looks like they may be. Me too. All right, guys, that is it. That is our Star Trek Weekly. Okay, Scott, see, he wants. Yeah, he would want kids. I'm pretty sure he would want to spread his progeny, but the people who stopped Khan and exiled him probably wouldn't want that to happen. It's probably that they were cruel back then. Remember, we're not the Utopia yet. When they imprisoned Khan and sent them away into Botany Bay, they probably exiled everybody that was on there. The only way he could have had kids would have been on the Botany Bay or with the crew of the Botany Bay, which means that she would definitely be a variant because she would be out of time. She would have been born after he got exiled, and he doesn't come back until after she's already existing. So she would definitely be a variant. That's just, like I said, pulling it out of my ass. No, don't be coming at me with, well, that's not impossible. No. This is just me thinking because this show allows you to think. So, all right, guys, next week we have more action. But like I said, these first 3 episodes have been great. And at some point in this season, we're going to have to revisit Pike's Peril because we know where he's headed. And that's more time travel. So, all right, until next Wednesday night at around 11:30-ish when we do the live stream, Vince won't be with us, so we're probably going to fuck this stream up. I'm going to warn you now.
I'll try to make sure you guys are good going forward. Don't worry.
Vince, listen. Vince is not going to be there, so we may be sitting in front of a camera talking and watching this show somewhere. Who knows if it's going to air? I may screw up and not push the live button like I've done before. So
you get to talk to yourself. You get to talk to yourself again for 45 minutes.
Yeah, we're going to be watching episode 4 next week. How it goes, we're going to try to work that out. But you'll definitely see it there the following Friday, 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So until then, try to stay out of the heat, which means staying the hell out of Vegas, Texas, California. Well, see you guys later.